As Elena departed, the silent man remained an enigma, a final riddle in a chapter of her life that had rewritten her understanding of the world. Welcome to Ephemeral Eyes. In the heart of Berlin's art district, where the pulse of history beats in rhythm with modern ambition, Elena Voss stood as a paragon of success. Her gallery, Voss Fine Arts, was a sanctum of high culture and elegance, a place where the wealthy and the wise came to bask in the glow of artistic mastery. Yet, within Elena, there brewed a storm of unfulfilled desires and unspoken aspirations. Elena, with her sharp green eyes that seemed to dissect the world around her, moved with a grace that belied her inner restlessness. She was a self-made woman, having climbed the ranks of the art world with a mix of keen intellect and ruthless strategy. Despite her achievements, there was an air about her that spoke of battles fought in silence, of victories that tasted less sweet than imagined. Her latest obsession, however, was not a masterpiece to hang on the polished walls of her gallery. It was the Book of Thoth, an ancient tome of knowledge, lost in the sands of time and the folds of legend. To the untrained eye, Elena's interest in the book might have seemed like a natural extension of her passion for art and history. But those who knew her saw something deeper, a flicker of intensity in her gaze whenever the book was mentioned. In her quest for the Book of Thoth, Elena spent countless evenings poring over historical texts, consulting with experts who could offer even a whisper of insight. The book was more than a mere artifact to her. It was a symbol of intellectual triumph, a beacon that promised to illuminate the shadowed corners of her own mind. The gallery, filled with the silent gazes of painted figures and the quiet whispers of patrons, often left Elena feeling isolated in a sea of admirers. Her success, as grand as it appeared, had built around her a golden cage of expectations and superficial connections. The Book of Thoth, in her eyes, held the key to something real, something that transcended the ephemeral nature of human accolades. To Elena, the pursuit of the book was not just about possessing a rare object. It was a challenge to the limits of her own understanding, a test of her ability to grasp the threads of the unknowable. It was a journey that promised to lead her to a truth far more profound than what hung on the walls of her gallery. A truth about the world, about knowledge, and perhaps most importantly, about herself. It was time for a change. With practiced poise, she announced a sabbatical, delegating the gallery's management to a trusted family member. Officially, it was a long overdue vacation. Unofficially, it was the beginning of her most daring adventure. Elena embarked on a journey that took her across the globe, tracing the whispered secrets of the Book of Thoth through ancient libraries in Europe, dusty tombs in Egypt, and hidden archives in Asia. Each location, steeped in history, seemed to bring her closer to understanding the enigmatic book. Through her travels, Elena gathered fragments of information that painted a picture of the book's contents. She learned of an ancient, wordless language, a means of communication so profound and intuitive that it transcended speech, creating connections between minds as easily as words connected ears. It was akin to the fabled ability to communicate with animals, a communion beyond the barriers of species and form. The second revelation was even more astounding. The Book of Thoth allegedly contained knowledge of navigating vast distances in the cosmos, not through physical means, but through an understanding so advanced it seemed indistinguishable from magic. Elena, with her sharp intellect, theorized that this was not mere fantasy, but perhaps a lost technology, a forgotten science of the ancients that could bridge the stars. As she delved deeper into her quest, Elena noticed an old man who seemed to shadow her movements from country to country. His presence was subtle, yet unmistakable to someone as observant as her. Initially, she suspected him to be a guardian of the ancient wisdom she sought, perhaps sent to deter her from uncovering secrets meant to remain hidden. In response, Elena hired a group of mercenaries for protection. Their presence was a deterrent. The old man disappeared from view. Yet, Elena couldn't shake off the feeling that her journey was being watched. Her quest for the Book of Thoth was entangling her in a web far larger and more complex than any gallery intrigue she had ever faced. His absence did little to ease her mind. It only deepened the mystery, setting the stage for a confrontation that would unravel in the next chapter of her journey. Unbeknownst to Elena, her pursuit of the book was drawing her closer to truths that were not just about ancient wisdom, but about the very fabric of reality itself. Her search for knowledge was turning into a voyage into the unknown, where the lines between myth and reality, science and magic, were blurred beyond recognition. Elena's journey in search of the Book of Thoth was a relentless pursuit through a labyrinth of false leads and clever deceptions. She uncovered numerous volumes, each purporting to be the legendary book, only to discard them upon closer inspection. From dusty shelves in hidden monasteries to black market deals in shadowy corners of the world, each discovery turned out to be a sophisticated forgery. The frustration of these fruitless searches only fueled her determination, making the true Book of Thoth an ever more tantalizing prize. Finally, in a remote part of the Egyptian desert, her team stumbled upon an ancient, tomb-like structure, half swallowed by the sands of time. Unlike the grandiose tombs of the pharaohs, this was a place of stark, haunting simplicity, its walls bearing cryptic hieroglyphs that seemed to writhe under the flicker of torchlight. In the heart of this eerie sanctum lay an altar, upon which rested a book, sealed within a stone, sarcophagus-like enclosure. Unlike previous encounters, this felt different to Elena, a visceral sense of finality pulsating in the air. She felt an inexplicable compulsion to access the book, her hands guided by an unseen force. She traced her fingers along the grooves and symbols on the altar, her touch resonating with the ancient stone, as if awakening a slumbering consciousness. As night fell, Elena and her team set up a temporary camp within the structure. She pored over the book, initially dismissing much of its content as similar to the fakes she had encountered. However, she soon found a section that stood out. Intrigued, she connected with her language expert via satellite. As Elena sat in the dim light of the ancient structure, the satellite phone her only link to the outside world, she listened intently to the language expert's voice crackling through the connection. Her knowledge of the ancient language was basic at best, but she was a quick study, repeating the one-syllable sounds as they were relayed to her, speaking about what he translated loosely to cosmic gateway. With each uttered sound, she felt herself slipping deeper into a trance-like state, the rhythm of the ancient language resonating within her. The syllables were strange, almost musical, and with each repetition, they seemed to echo off the walls of the structure, creating a chorus that enveloped her. The sounds were more than mere language. They were a key unlocking something primal and deep within her consciousness. As she continued, her awareness of her surroundings blurred, the world outside the structure fading away until there was nothing but her voice, the ancient syllables, and a growing sense of connection to something vast and incomprehensible. The experience was intoxicating, a dance of sound and sensation that transcended time and space, drawing her ever closer to the secrets of the Book of Thoth. The process was intense and draining. Elena felt a strange energy coursing through her as she voiced the sounds, a vibration that seemed to resonate with the very walls of the structure. When the translation was complete, a gap in her memory ensued. Elena awoke to the morning sun streaming through the entrance, the sandy ground beneath her. The camp was gone, along with her team and all their equipment. The altar, once a solid structure, was now nothing but ruins with no trace of the book. After a grueling trek through the unforgiving desert, Elena finally stumbled upon the fringes of civilization, her body and spirit worn thin by the ordeal. However, her return to the world she knew was met with bewildering isolation, unable to access her bank accounts or a hold of relatives or friends in any way. Stripped of her status and resources, she was forced to adapt to a life unimaginably distant from the luxuries she once knew. Elena found herself relying on the kindness of strangers for sustenance, often resorting to scouring through discarded remnants for food. In this state of destitution, the enigmatic old man who had shadowed her journey reappeared, the same man that drove her to hire a band of mercenary bodyguards. Recognizing her amidst her plight, he offered shelter and assistance. Yet he remained a puzzle, a silent guardian whose motives were as obscure as the forces Elena had once sought to uncover. He provided no answers, responding to her frustrations and queries with a serene silence that both infuriated and soothed her. Under his quiet guidance, Elena worked tirelessly, performing menial tasks that once would have seemed beneath her, gradually accumulating the means to return home. Despite her efforts to unravel his mystery, he remained a silent specter, a presence that guided without leading, teaching her the value of perseverance and humility without a single word. When she finally secured a ticket back to Berlin, he offered no resistance, only a subtle gesture of farewell, a bow that seemed to acknowledge her journey and transformation. As Elena departed, the silent man remained an enigma, a final riddle in a chapter of her life that had rewritten her understanding of the world. Elena's return to Berlin was like stepping into a parallel reality, a city that mirrored her memories yet was disturbingly altered. The streets she once knew like the back of her hand now twisted in unfamiliar patterns. Buildings that she remembered were either gone or bizarrely transformed. It was as if the city had been redrawn by a capricious architect in her absence. She first visited her gallery, Voss Fine Arts, but found it replaced by a modern art museum with no trace of her name or legacy. The staff, strangers to her, looked through her as if she were a ghost. Distraught, Elena sought solace in familiar haunts, cafes, parks, the university she once attended. But each place was a twisted reflection of her memories, filled with faces that held no recognition of her. As Elena wandered the city, the fabric of reality seemed to warp around her. Buildings pulsated with a surreal life of their own, and the people she passed in the streets appeared almost translucent, their features blurring and shifting in her vision. She reached out to friends and family, only to find strangers living in their homes, speaking of histories that held no place for her. Each encounter, each unrecognizable turn of the street, chipped away at Elena's sanity. The city she had loved was now a labyrinth of madness, a place where every familiar sight and sound was a reminder of her own dislocation. She began to see patterns in the chaos, conspiracies whispered by the rustling leaves and encoded in the graffiti on the walls. Her nights were plagued with vivid psychedelic nightmares, where the cityscape melted and reformed into impossible geometries. The climax of her descent came when she visited the university, a place she once considered a sanctuary of learning and ambition. There she confronted a professor, a mentor from her past, now a stranger with a different name and face. In a moment of fractured reality, she lashed out, her desperation boiling over into violence. The authorities found her raving about the Book of Thoth, about a world that had shifted beneath her feet. They confined her to a mental institution, a place of sterile walls and hushed voices, where her tales of ancient books and cosmic gateways were dismissed as the delusions of a broken mind. In the ward, Elena became a shell of her former self, her once sharp and ambitious spirit dulled by medication and the weight of her unreal reality. She spent her days wandering the halls, whispering to shadows, a tragic figure who had sought knowledge and instead found madness. The world outside continued its march, oblivious to the woman who once sought to uncover its deepest secrets, now lost in the depths of her own unraveling mind. If you enjoyed the story about how the Book of Thoth humbled Elena Voss, maybe just a little too much, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I would love to see you again, friend.